Hi there. I bought this Chauvet Foot C2 DMX controller to control a basic lighting stage setup that we have as a live band. This board uses foot switches to control lighting fixtures on stage, for color and brightness and various effects. There aren't a ton of videos out there on the Chauvet Foot C2, but it still seems like there's a lot of confusion on how to use it and complaints about the owner's manual. And we'll get into that in a separate video. But today I wanted to focus on DMX and what it is using this controller. The DMX Protocol contains digital messages that allows an 8-bit value, so between 0 and 255, to be sent over a discrete channel. This protocol allows up to 512 different channels, and each fixture differs on how many DMX channels it can use. So for example, if you have a basic pendant lighting for a house light, it may only use one DMX channel to control its brightness. So 0 would be off and 255 would be the full brightness. A more complicated fixture such as this one will use multiple channels, and some will go up to say even 16 channels to control gobos and movement and stuff like that. And if you've got a system that uses hundreds of DMX channels, you're probably using software on a computer, not a manual control board like this. So this is a Chauvet SlimPar38. It's a pretty simple, small fixture, about, 6-7 inches across. And actually, I don't think they make these anymore. They went out of production maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And on the back, you can see where the DMX goes in, where it comes out for daisy chaining, where the power goes in, and where the power can also come out for more daisy chaining. So let's give this some power and see what happens here. Immediately powers up, and we can go through some menu options. C is for different preset colors. We can just cycle through them. There's 7 preset colors on here. P is for the presets. There are multiple preset fades and colors and swaps on here. S is for the speed of those different presets if you want to have them. So in these cases, you don't need any kind of DMX input or controller. You can set this and let it do its thing. Color, preset, speed. You can have user-defined RGB values if you want to be that specific. But for DMX, there's a 3-channel mode and a 7-channel mode. Let's start with a 3-channel mode. We'll hit enter. And what comes up is a digit. It says D for DMX and 1. And this is the starting address. And since it's in 3-channel mode, you'll be using DMX channels 1, 2, and 3. So if for some reason we set the starting address to 3, the 3 channels it would respond to would be 3, 4, and 5. It always uses 3 and only 3 channels in 3-channel mode. So let's set this up with this controller. We've got the DMX out here, and over here is the DMX into the back of the light. So if we were to look at the back of the controller itself, let me flip this over. We've got a little roadmap here for fixtures and what the starting address is and what the range is for each button. And I think this is part of the confusion people have with DMX controllers like this. But we'll start with fixture 1 and starting address 1, which is where we have the light already set. So we'll set this back down right about there. And let's set this guy up so you can see what's actually happening. So we are on fixture 1. So we have 6 controllers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So channel 1 is your red input. And this will probably just blow out the camera, but you can see that channel 1 is controlling the red. Channel 2 controls the green. And channel 3 controls the blue, or any combination. If you want white, different colors of white. You want purple. And channels 4, 5, and 6 will do nothing. One thing you'll notice with this controller is that the actual DMX value will show up here. If you want a specific value of red, you could dial it in, or blue. So I have another one of the exact same lights here. We're going to set up right here. I've got the DMX cable here as the input. We'll be daisy chaining to the output. So I can take this light, daisy chain it in, and we still need to power up this other light. Use a short jumper cable like this. It's got an IAC plug on it. we'll plug the power into the back of this light. And this will be plugged into the daisy chaining power output of this light. So if we look at the back of this light, we'll see that it is at channel 4. Let's move this down to channel 1. So it's on DMX channel 1, starting address. And if we cycle through, we can see it is in 3-channel mode as well. So now we have 2 fixtures at the same starting address in the same DMX mode. So if we turn everything off, we can adjust channel 1. We've got DMX value of 35, which is going to both fixtures. This is because the same DMX signal goes to both lights. So this allows you to chain as many lights as you want together if you're okay with them having the same behavior. But maybe that's kind of boring, you say. We want the second fixture to operate independently. We want it to be different than the first fixture. Well, if we flip this controller back over, you can see that fixture 2 has starting address 7 and range 7 through 12. So we'll take the second fixture and change its starting address to 7. And now it's off. So we need to go to fixture 2. And when we do that, fixture 1 turns off. That's because we're not in program mode, and we'll get back to that. So fixture 2, now we can adjust independently. We can do a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, or whatever we want it to be. So let's just turn this off for a second. I'm going to hold this and go into program mode. That allows us to go to fixture 1, find the nice red or whatever that we want, stop controlling fixture 1 but keep the light on. Fixture 2, we want it to be, I don't know, we'll say a little bit of blue. So now we have 2 different behaviors using this controller. So if you can imagine, we could repeat this for fixture 3, 4, 5, and 6, and have 6 of these lights all independently doing something differently. However, it turns out that is an inefficient use of our available DMX channels. This allows us to have up to 36 channels. That is the total range of this controller, DMX channel 1 through 36. So if we were to set up 6 lights this way, each using 3 channels, we'd only be using 18 channels, not 36. And I think that's where some of the confusion comes in, especially with a controller like this that has words like fixture over here, and red, green, blue, and different colors on these specific knobs. I think it's easier to think of these 6 buttons as banks, or pages, or folders, or however it makes sense to you. This first button controls DMX channels 1 through 6. This second button controls 7 through 12. All the way through until channel 6, it controls 31 through 36. So knowing that, let's try something. Let's take the second fixture and change the starting address to 4. Let's do that. We're on 7. We're going to go down to 4 and hit enter. And we'll go back to fixture 1. So again, 1, 2, and 3 are the 3 DMX addresses this light is looking at. We can adjust the red, we can adjust the blue, and the green. Let's make it just a little bit green right now. But now these 3 knobs here control this fixture, our R, G, and B values. Even though the controller itself says amber, white, and UV, that really has nothing to do with what's going on here. We have this fixture set to 3 channel modes, so it's looking for 3 channels, the first one being 4, which is what's on the back of this. That's what we set it. So it's going to look at 4, 5, and 6. Those are the 3 DMX channels it's looking for, 4, 5, and 6. The first one will control the red, the second one will be the green, and the third one will be the blue. And we'll just leave it a little bit of blue here. So in this case, we could set up and control 12 of these fixtures if we used every channel available to us. This would be one light. This would be the second light. Fixture 2 would use these 3 channels. And these 3 channels, this would be our third light and fourth light, and so on. So when we first cycled through this light, we saw different modes, one of them being a 7-channel mode. What's that all about? Well, first, let's lose this light. Let's go back to here. Get rid of this DMX out. We don't need that anymore. So we're still on channel 1 and still in 3-channel mode. Let's go to 7-channel mode, hit enter, and leave it at starting address 1. So let's go back to fixture 1 and start turning some knobs. So you may notice our red, green, and blue aren't doing anything. So what's going on here? And here's where we need to look at the manual for the light. And I'll bring up a section of that manual here and look at it. So channels 1, 2, and 3 are still red, green, and blue. Now we have 4, 5, 6, and 7. Channel 4 are macros. And what macros are those built-in different color patterns that we saw earlier. Channel 5 sets the speed and also allows us to do some strobing. Channel 6 has a bunch of other presets, sound triggered mode, pulsing effects, depending on the DMX value we assign to channel 6. Channel 7 is the dimmer. So we have to go over to channel 7, which would be the first slider in our second bank. Our first bank is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our second bank is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 7, we need to take the dimmer value and turn it on. If we go back to 1, now we get our colors. So we are normal back to our RGB mode. That's really bright. Let's just give it a little bit of blue and a little bit of red, get some purple. And maybe tilt this just a little bit so it's not blowing out the camera so much. So if we start changing channel 4, now we're into different patterns, different colors. These are different options that are baked in. It's kind of blowing out the camera here. And maybe what we'll do is actually go over to our dimmer and turn it down just a little bit. So now we can see different color patterns, different colors. These are the macros. These are built-in colors if you don't want to pick one yourself. But let's just turn that off for now. I'm going to go back, turn my dimmer up just a little bit. Now 5 would be the speed of a strobe. It's kind of hard to tell on the camera, but this is changing the speed of the strobe. Maybe I need to make it a little brighter. Let's go back to 2, turn the brightness up a little bit. Not sure how well it's going to come across on camera, but this 5 is a strobing effect. This is speed. So we can turn that down for a second. Channel 6 are all of these different modes. You can see from 0 to 31 is our standard RGB mode, but let's do a pulse effect. I like the 100 to 0 to 100, so basically on-off. So we need this to be about, we'll say 100. Between 96 and 127. So this here, and then this would be the speed. And what we're going to do is go back to the brightness, turn that all the way up, give it some color, and then we can change the pulsing of the light from on to off. Maybe turn that down a little bit. Oop, that's too much. So now I've got a fast pulse. Again, we're using 5 to control the speed of the pulsing. Channel 6 can change the kind of pulsing. If we go above 128, we get an auto fade. This is like full brightness. That would need to be adjusted with that channel 7, just going through all the colors. If we go past 160, this is what they call auto snap. There's no fade to it. It's just snapping through red, green, and blue. If we go all the way above 192, now we're snapping through 7 different colors. Again, kind of hard to tell because it's blowing out the camera. And if we go above 224, we're in sound triggering mode. So it's not going to do anything until so that's a little primer on DMX, and now it's changing because of my voice. What I'm going to do is see if the dimmer has any effect on this. Okay, see the dimmer does not have any effect here. It says it only says it works on RGB and the macro modes. So in sound triggering mode, the channel 7, the dimmer has no effect. So what we could do is go back to our number 6 here, turn it all the way back down to 0. We are now in RGB mode, and we can go back to our, oh yeah, we're still in, because we left this value of the speed up. You can't really see it, but we're in a strobing pattern right now. Doesn't really come through on the camera, but you can see that. So hopefully that makes some sense. The important part here is to understand that you have 6 banks of channels. Each one is 6 wide on this particular controller, but knowing what DMX address is being sent out and what the light is listening to, what is the starting address, and how many addresses that it's looking for. Not all fixtures have different modes. This has 3 or 7, but knowing how to control the exact channel you want allows for a lot of freedom and creativity when it comes to setting up your lights. For example, I use Excel to plan out my lights and DMX assignments. Let's take a look at an example over on the computer. So here's a quick DMX map that I drew up using some of the lights that I have here. It's a very small setup. Again, this controller only allows up to 36 channels. I've kind of blocked them out into the different banks that this controller looks at. 6 channel banks at a time, 1 through 6, 7 through 12, and so forth. So the light we were looking at is the PAR38, and here I've got it set up in 3 channel mode. It starts on 31, it looks at 31, 32, 33. Then I have a separate light starting at 34 in 3 channel mode and just controlling RG and B. These are the left rear lights on the stage, kind of across the stage. I've got PAR64s. These are bigger lights. They run in 8 channel mode. They have amber lights. That's what the A is for. And the same thing with macro, speeds, different modes, and the dimmer. These are 2 lights. I label them A and B, and these are my front washes, basically your main front lights. And I want them doing the same thing. So I've got them assigned to DMX channels 1 through 8. I have 2 more of these PAR64s, fixture C and fixture D, that's what I call them, starting at channels 9 and channels 19, so I can have them do independent things. And what I really have is 4 different fixtures around the stage that I can set up for different scenes or different chases, and we'll get into that in the next video. So hopefully that makes some sense. I like looking at it visually to understand which DMX channels are being used for which fixture, where I'm using it, what the different channels do, and what the starting address is. So I know that I grab lights A and B, I set the starting address to 1, light C, starting address is 9, light D is 19, and then for those 2 smaller PAR38s, they would start at addresses 31 and 34. And once I do that, I can use this map anytime as long as these numbers don't change. So hopefully that was helpful. Apparently we're still blinking over here. Just basically explaining how DMX controllers work and how they can be flexible to control any given fixture. The next video will be on this controller itself, how to program, in programming mode, different scenes, different chases, and then some of the pros and cons that this board has. So hopefully we'll see you then.